Welcome to the Dark Goddess New Moon Eclipse, sexual liberation on both the masculine and feminine sides, wild man, wild woman, fullness, stepping into not just the full expression of our life force, but also how does that align with our purpose? How does that align with our deep heart's desires? How does that align with our capacity to create, to manifest in this world, to make things happen in this world? Y'all, this is one hell of an eclipse. I am telling you what. We've got an awesome opportunity to do some really big stuff on this new moon eclipse happening on the 2nd of October. Really and truly. Here's the thing though, most of us are going to skate right the fuck around it, because it is the dark sides of ourselves that are being illuminated. It is the darker, hidden sides of self that we do not want to look at. We do not want to look at the Lilith in ourselves. She's conjunct this new moon. Yeah, Black Moon Lilith conjunct the new moon eclipse, opposing, ready for it, the wild man, virility, like masculine, sexual, full expression. Priapus is perfectly opposing this new moon eclipse. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. Most of us will totally avoid this thing. Most of us will just like completely fall back into old patterns, old ways of doing things, despite the fact that we're being asked to evolve, grow, and move into something newer and truer for ourselves. I know that's a little bit of like an in your face, just really like going for the jugular right off the bat for this new moon, but that's what the energy of this new moon is. It's going for the jugular, or I should say it's like going for the testicles, right? Or the lady balls. Like it's just going right for the goods. And it's saying like, here's where your power's at. Here's why you don't have confidence. Here's why you're lacking self-esteem. Here's why you don't feel like you have purpose. Here's why you don't feel like you're living a joyful, fulfilled life. Here's why. That's this eclipse. Right? This thing's tough. I want to give us a bunch of stuff though to be able to work with it, because it's gold. There's gold. There's gold in this eclipse. So let's see if we can get to some practices and some ways to kind of excavate this gold. All right, let's kind of take it from the top and just go, all right, it's a new moon. It's a new moon in Libra. That sounds great, right? New moons, they're normally new beginnings, fresh starts, plant seeds. Yep. It's in Libra, balance, harmony, right? However, it's on the south node. That's what makes it an eclipse. So yes, all of those things are still true. It is still a new moon in Libra. It's on the south node. The south node is your past life karmic territory. Typically when someone does their first journey into their south node, let's say you do an experiential journey in ReWilding into your south node, it's typically like walking into hell. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. If you have done a South Node embodied journey with me in ReWilding, maybe drop a comment below. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment below. Just let everybody know what your experience of South Node was, because it's literally walking into your karmic territory, your past life territory, your ancestral territory. It is a spot, a somatic place, an energetic place, a point that we can actually go into, right? To access how some people talk about intergenerational trauma. You can actually walk right into it and work with it. You can work with it. Isn't that great? You can bring consciousness to this seemingly very unconscious, hard to reach place. Nope, totally accessible. Most people don't do it, but it's accessible. It's accessible. You can bring consciousness to anything. It's kind of what Carl Jung was pointing to and referring to when he said enlightenment is actually the bringing light to the dark, bringing consciousness to the unconscious. And so you're just enlightening yourself by bringing consciousness to the unconscious. South Node territory is very unconscious territory. It's very shadow territory. It's very hidden territory. So when we talk about like, oh, I'm going to do some shadow work, I'm going to do some, like deep diving into like my deep traumas and my deep wounds and, my old patterns and all the gooey karmic stuff that I walked into this life with, that's your South Node. So this new moon, which is seemingly lovely in Libra, is a South Node. It's conjunct the South Node. Now we've also just had the Sun go over the South Node and Mercury go over the South Node. We also have, right, this black moon on the South Node, right? She's been on the South Node. So she's just been like bashing the South Node. And I'm going to talk about what this black moon Lilith point is. It's a very, very potent, powerful point. Also a shadow worker point. So it's literally like all forces are looking at your past life territory, your intergenerational trauma, right? Your hidden, dark, deep shadow stuff. And this is the beautiful part. This is gift-filled and glorious, but it might be why you feel like shit or just don't want to participate in life right now. Because it's looking at it and it's going, hey, in order for you to evolve or to grow or to take your next step into your greatest purpose-filled, passionate, joy-filled, aligned and alive life, because that's the whole point of the South Node, North Node, right? That's the whole kind of like point of these soul points. It's your journey in this life heading further toward your North Node, further toward, but every time we work in the South Node, we open up more in the North Node. They're opposite each other in your astrology chart, right? In every astrology chart, they're perfectly opposite of each other. They're the soul points in your chart. And to me, how I've kind of seen it, over the years of working with it, not just in myself, but in others, is that they're just as important as your sun. Like you look at your sun for your personality, right? That's your personality. That's what your soul is going to shine through. It's going to shine through your sun and your moon, right? Great. Those are personality points. They're parts of self. They're important parts of self. But when you look at your North and South Node, that's your soul journey. And it's like that shines through the sun and the moon points when you look at your astrology chart. So those are incredibly potent. That's like your whole deep, spiritual, soulful, when people say, what is my purpose in life? Look at your nodes. What is my calling in life? Look at your nodes. What's going to make me feel fulfilled in life? Look at your nodes. What's in alignment for me? Look at your nodes. What's my true north, right? Look at your nodes. Nodes of fates. Everything's in the nodes of fate when it comes to that soul purpose journey. Of course, there's many other points in the chart to look at, and it's all kind of this like perfectly designed, beautiful, intricate thing to point to kind of your soul's blueprint. It's really what your birth chart is. It's like your soul's blueprint. I was like, hey, I would love a handbook to like myself. Look at your astrology chart. Like I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's crazy how beautiful this like divine mapping is. And to be given this tool or to discover this tool or to like align with this tool, to understand this tool. Anyways, I'm going off about some stuff. So let's come back to, all right, new moon in Libra. We're thinking this is going to be fucking beautiful, but it's actually South Node territory and it's incredibly shadow. All right, so now adding into this shadow territory of this South Node karmic, fated sort of territory, and we work there, we excavate that, we do shadow work, because it is also golden shadow. It also reveals your hidden gifts, your unique potentials, your soul, like magic, right? Who you are. If you've ever done any kind of shadow work, you'll go, wow, that's like some of the most transformative shit I've ever done in my life. If you've done good and proper shadow work, you'll literally go, that's the shit that changed my life the most. Not this like good, airy, fairy, fuzzy, happy stuff, right? That can open us up to other states of consciousness, but then to actually live it, to like live other states of consciousness, to live higher levels of love, you got to do shadow work, because you can't embody those higher states of consciousness that you tap into. You'll never be able to bring it down into your body. You'll never be able to bring it through into what you create. You'll never be able to bring it through into like your lovemaking, you're raising babies, you're running a business. You won't be able to bring it through. Okay, so shadow work. It's perfect. It's amazing. It helps us to, when we talk about like soul retrievals and the embodiment of soul, you want to do shadow work because it moves out the shadow to make more room for the soul to land, to arrive. That's one way of looking at it. Like it's just kind of a kind of mental framework to look at it. Of course, that's not how it works exactly, but it's a way of like visualizing it, right? Shadow work, getting it out of the way, getting it out of the way, getting it out of the way. It's like, I sometimes will say, it's like just moving out the rubble, moving out the rubble, moving out the rubble. Okay, so some practices that are really, really good for this moment in time. We've kind of moved past the shamanic practices. So if you've listened to some of my past videos, it was like, wow, this is a Hecate time. It's a Medusa time. We've got medicine men, medicine women. Chiron is up in the mix. He's a medicine man, right? He's up in the mix in this astrology, but it's moved on. That maybe is where it's at for you. Feel into it. It might be, right? Shamanic journeys into the underworld. For sure, that could still be very much alive, or that could just be really like deeply core kind of how you work in this territory. But if I were to say, what are the best things that you could do in this sort of like shadowy psychic, I don't want to say that. The psychic storm has also passed. So I want to let you know there are certain things that have passed that you might still be clinging on to. One is that like shamanic-y medicine man, medicine woman. By the time we get to this new moon eclipse, that will be past. We're going to be in a different, more tantric, right? We're in a more tantric like space. And I'll talk about what that is. Like you want to do shadow tantra. That's what you want to do. You want to do shadow, like tantric type shadow stuff around masculine and feminine, around your sexual energy. You want to do stuff in your first chakra, your second chakra. Those are the two chakras, that area of the body. Get in your pelvic bowl, right? Dance around, move some emotions around if emotions are bubbling up in there. Like that's where the juice is at. And I'm going to talk about why that is, like why all signs point to that for this eclipse. Okay, so where were we at before we go into that? Let me just pick up another thread. We'll just pick up a bunch of different threads and we'll just bounce all over the place and take what serves, whatever doesn't serve. Remember, there's always like chuck it in the fucking bucket. So if there's something that comes through in this conversation, you're like, wow, I just don't really relate to that. That's totally beautiful. But don't let the stuff that really does serve or really does resonate or spark something or inspire something, don't let the stuff that you need to chuck in the fucking bucket get in the way of getting the goods, right? So just be discerning. Always be discerning with everything. Oh yeah, here's what I was talking about. The things that have passed. So one of the things that has passed is kind of that like shamanic territory. Again, that might just be your tool, your modality, your way of getting into shadow territory. Great, go for it. But astrologically, it's a little bit past that. It's also a little bit past the Neptune thing. So the Neptune came in and it was literally like a dissolving of the ego. So for a little while there, like that full moon eclipse, the full moon eclipse was on the 17th of September. The moon was conjunct Neptune. What the ever loving. We could not discern whose was what. It was a psychic shitstorm. So if you were like, wow, I had super like no boundaries between my energetic space and another's. I didn't know whose was what I was running through my system. Like dreams were like off the hook. Like I couldn't even come out of like a state of oneness. I couldn't find myself. That was Neptune doing the ego dissolving that he did in this eclipse season. But Neptune's past that. Like he's done the ego dissolving. This is part of your growth, right? Part of the growth and the evolution and working through the karma, releasing the karma to move you further into your dharma. Karma would be south node. We talked about that. This is a south node new moon eclipse. South node, it's very karmic, right? So that south node, karmic. And then north node, where you're headed to in this lifetime, greatest potentials, right? Highest soul's expression. North node is dharmic, right? That's your dharma. We all know that from spiritual traditions. What is your dharma? This is my dharma. This is my dharma. This is just what I'm here to do. This is my dharma. This is my path, right? This is my destiny. It's my dharma. All of this shit show that's going on right now, all of this shadow work, is to move us further and further into that gloriousness of our dharma. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it, but it's hell. It is hell. The underworld is considered the hell realms, right? Pluto, lord of the underworld, he's considered lord of the hell realms. The hell realms is shadow territory. It's literally like past life, like south node territory. It's considered the hell realms. It's tough. It's tough. It's challenging. It's crunchy, right? It's hard, but it's fucking worth it. So I did 3 years of north node, south node work before I was able to found ReWilding for Women. 3 years of it. Like I had to work through my terror of stepping into my gifts, I suppose you could call these things. I don't know. I had to do Far out. It was like, I'm going to be crucified. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be burnt at the stake. I'm going to be fucking splayed out on the cross if I go public around what it is that's coming through me, or if I am seen doing what it is that I do, right? Anyways, we all have our own little magical chestnuts and gems in that South Node territory. Okay. So just kind of summarize that part. It's worth it. It's worth it. And right now is a really great moment in time to, instead of looking away from something, look at something. Here's super simple on how to work with this in this moment. What is it that is coming up for you? What is it that's challenging, triggering? What is it that you almost want to look away from? You almost want to like turn your head. You want to look away from because it hurts. It's hard, right? It's bringing up emotion. And then instead of looking away from it, look at it. And then, if you want to go a little deeper with it, look at it with love. Hard. Look at it, if you can't get to love, look at it with compassion. If you can't get to compassion, look at it without judgment. Right? So whatever it is, let me just repeat this because your brain will probably shit itself. That's a self-defense mechanism, right? My sister calls it brain flooding. I think that's a psychological term that we're using nowadays. But my brain just goes like, bleh, right? It just cannot, it doesn't even want to go there. It's like, wait, what were we even talking about? I don't even remember what was going on. Anytime that happens, your mind is trying to protect itself from changing something. Like there's something that's it's wanting something to stay hidden. It's typically little ego self because it doesn't want to change, right? It doesn't want to like die, or it's like, hey, I've like gotten you this far. We're good. But it's now during eclipse seasons, your soul is running the show and your soul is kind of beating up your ego. It's like bashing it. It's like, humble up, sunshine, and you ain't that powerful, and who you think you are is not who you actually are. All right, let's talk more specifics on this particular eclipse, October 2nd, new moon eclipse. Okay. We've talked about the Libra piece of it. We've talked about the new moon. We've talked about it being a south node. What we have not talked about is that the nodes, right? Libra, Aries is the axis they're on. South node is in Libra. North node is in Aries. What the fuck? You want to know what this is about? This is about all the shit, South Node, all the shit that you've experienced in past life relationships and all the shit in your ancestral line that sits in relationships coming up to the surface. That's fun. We need to talk about boundaries. We need to talk about independent, codependent, interdependent, all that stuff. We need to talk about overgiving. We need to talk about just how it is that we are being called to evolve into next right relationship with relationship. Let me say that one more time. How we're being called to evolve into next right relationship with relationship. So the nodes of fate, North and South node, they've been on this Aries Libra axis for, it'll be 18 months. Come January. This is the last eclipse on the nodes of fate. So it's really like the eclipses, it's last opportunity. It's a soulful moment in time. And it's like the eclipse is going, all right, guys and gals, this is our last chance. Let's go get them. You know, you can like think about like your spirit guides and angels and all the like beautiful things looking out for your soul. And they're all just looking down there like, all right, this is it for relationship access because this stuff's shifted in January, right? This is the last big eclipse where veils are thin. It's super easy to go get them. Let's do it. And so they are flooding in. So some of the stuff coming up will not be new. A lot of stuff in eclipses that comes up, it's not new. It's not new news. You've known your relationship sucks in this area. You've known you're hiding parts of your sexuality. You've known that this family pattern is running through you still. You've known it. So that's something really good to just get really, really honest about. Honest with yourself about. And that's that part of like, instead of looking away from it, big practice in the moment, instead of looking away from the challenging, triggering stuff, right? And these things that you've known, instead of looking away and sweeping them back under the carpet, because we're going to want to have that like brain flood where we just go, bleh, I don't know what's going on here. We're going to want to sweep it under the carpet and go back to old safety security patterns. We're going to want to go back to the old patterns and the old ways of managing that, right? Maybe your old way of managing something like, who knows? I don't want to give too many examples because then I feel like I like limit us or like take us down a rabbit hole. But let's say like you have a pattern of dealing with, like you perceive your partner's turning away from you. So you get hyper independent and you just shut down, right? And so you're perceiving that in this moment and and this is the pattern. But it's this moment in time, right, where instead of whatever you're perceiving, it's fine. Instead of having that auto reaction of like, all right, I'm going to armor up, I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to get hyper independent, or whatever it is, I'm going to try something different here because this doesn't serve anymore. This maybe served when I was a kid and I felt like a burden on my family, or there was a lack of love or a lack of consciousness and, awareness and attention being given to me. There's now something different wanting to unfold. Y'all, this is such a moment in time where we can really drop a lot of karmic baggage. And you're like, how? Sabrina? These things that I'm sharing with you, right? These things that I'm sharing with you is to face forward, face the challenging stuff, face the triggery stuff. Get into the shadow territory, get into the hidden stuff with whatever practices you have, right? Maybe you do have like shamanic shadow work practices. Maybe you do have tantric shadow work practices, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute here. Maybe you want to try something different and you're like, I don't know, Sabrina, but this ReWilding stuff sounds pretty good. Something's hitting here. Come join Bones for a month. There's a bunch of different practices in there, like there's a bunch of different tools that you get to add to your tool chest from all those different explorations that are sitting in there. One of them is the Eclipse Deep Dive, right? Like 90 minutes into this territory of like guided journey into the territory, experiential. We're like doing the work in there. That's a bonus that I do. I like doing those for a membership around eclipses and like certain like hot spots during the year. So that's there. That's good. Like September, October, that's going to be in that portion of the membership. Doing some shadow work, and shadow work is really just making the unconscious conscious. So let's just boil it down. It doesn't have to be that fucking complicated. We get all like weird and wild about this stuff. It's literally making the unconscious conscious. It's literally bringing light into the dark. It's literally enlightening parts of self, right? Instead of them being like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to see it. I want to pretend like it's not there. I want to sweep it under the carpet. I'm going to go there and I'm going to love it. Shadow work is also about not just seeing it. It's about seeing it, loving it, sometimes healing it, nourishing it, awakening it, and then integrating it. Maybe you need to replay that little part of the video if you're like, I want to do more shadow work. Okay, but I want to move on and I want to talk more astrology. All right, let's feel now going a little bit deeper into this. We've talked about Libra, we've talked about South Node, we've talked that this is the last one on the relationship line. I do see that this is this particular eclipse season because of the Neptune piece and because of that last full moon on the 17th being in on the spiritual axis. So that full moon was on the spiritual axis, the Virgo Pisces axis. So it's beautiful because it's overlapping the spiritual axis with the relationship axis. So this means soulmates, twin flames, karmic knots, people we've been doing lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of journeys with. And there's possibly some releasing to be done there. There's possibly some up-leveling to be done there. There's possibly some like re-signing of soul contracts to be done in that territory. Just feel into that. We know like soul connections. We know karmic connections. We know them. We feel them. We know them. You have a sense of them. You don't need to go see a psychic for that. You don't need to go see your Akashic record reader for that. You actually just know it. Like, this is a karmic fucking relationship. This is a karmic bond. And then feeling into that karmic bond and going, is Is this reorganizing itself? Is there some change that's happening? Think about eclipses, endings for beginnings, transformation, growth, evolution, right? I'm not saying that these things are ending, right? I'm not saying twin flame relationship is you're suddenly separating from I'm not saying any of that. But it's a time where we want to give these karmic soulmate type anamkara, right? Soul friend, that's anamkaras. You want to feel into your anamkaras. Maybe it's just like, wow, there's actually like nothing there other than just love. And you want to lean into those people right now, right? You want to connect with those people. You want to tell them how much you love them. You want to tell them how grateful you are for them. You want to speak the words from the soul around these relationships, right? Like deepen into those bonds, deepen into the dharma, what those relationships are meant for. This is powerful and potent and wild and beautiful. And we always kind of like go to like the breakup part of things. It can be that, but it can also be like deepening in and strengthening what two souls have come together to do, or what a group of souls have come together to do. I know in ReWilding, right? We like team ReWilding, it's a group of souls. Like it is a very, very dharmic relationship. It is a very like, we sometimes say like mission sisters, right? Like it's like soul sisters. Yeah. But it's also like soul sisters mixed in with mission sisters. Like we all are like supporting this ReWilding's like higher dharma, higher expression to be brought out into the world. And so feel into things like that for yourself. This is a moment in time to like deepen into those, maybe re-sign soul contracts, maybe readjust them or reshift them or speak truths from those places, them to be more revealed, come out into the open more, right? Enlightening, bringing light to what has been previously hidden in those kind of relationships. Okay, so that's overall access. We're going to work on that in membership. So if you're having anything come up around relationship stuff, right? It doesn't have to be soulmate relationship stuff. It can be how your boundaries are between self and other. We're doing that in the October 1st circle. So if you're like, wow, I'm really feeling the relationship stuff is really up for me, that me versus we. I mean, how could we not work on this like final piece of the Aries Libra axis? The nodes of fate are leaving in January. This is like our final swoop at it. To me, it's like, all right, we get one last go. We get one last go at this thing, and let's look face forward and see what we can do around coming into next right relationship to ourselves, to our loved ones, to our beloveds, to our intimate partners, to our families, to our anamkaras. Like let's, and that's what I want to support coming up on October 1st. So if you're wondering like, hey, what's the membership circle that's happening, or the workshop, the journey that's coming up on October 1st, it's got a lot to do with relationships. Also in that, and I'm going to dive into this little piece next in the astrology. So sit tight, hold on, because the astrology is really pointing to the demand. I want to get these words right, because sometimes we just like crap out when I say these words, and they just like go in one ear and out the other, but they're extraordinarily important. So I want to find a way to say this so that we don't just go like, la la, here it goes again, like balance, harmony of the masculine and feminine, blah, like I feel like that's starting to just go in one ear and out the other. So here's how I want to talk about this. Lilith is on this new moon. If there was one archetypal energy that demands equality, it's Lilith. She will stop at nothing to get equality. She will stop at nothing, right? She will eat babies. That's part of her myth. She eats babies. She will fuck demons on the beach. That's also part of her myth, right? She will birth demon babies from fucking on the beach. That's also part of her myth. To get equality, right? To have the fullness of herself, reclaimed and expressed. She'll stop at nothing for that. What Lilith deeply ultimately wants in all of this, like wild woman, hear me roar, feminine reclamation, sexual liberation, that's all Lilith. But there's a lot of like purifying that Lilith requires, demands of us, and it's glorious, right? But what she's purifying us into and awakening us to and evolving us into is this. Let me feel for it. is this way of being that fully liberated, right? Full feminine. That's what Lilith wants. Full feminine, like full feminine, right? Full, all of her hidden parts are out in the light. All of her hidden parts get to see the light of day. But it's not from a retribution place. It's not from a wicked place. It's not from like, I'm so angry at you. I'm so sad at you. That's what she's purifying us out of. She's purifying us through that. She's purifying us into that. I am so full. I am so open. I am so free. And so are you, my masculine counterpart. You are so open. You are so free. You are so full. And you are that. And I am that. And we can meet each other in that. Like, I want your wild man. I want your fullness. I want your sexual liberation. And I need you to want mine. That's what she's asking for. I mean, society is barely dealing with that, barely even looking at that. I mean, we're stuffing so much sexual energy down. Like, I'm surprised we're even still alive. You know, like, I'm surprised, like, we're not like turning gray and like shriveling into little grapes as human beings because we repress so much of our sexual energy. I could go off on that for a really long time. So this new moon is a sexual awakening. Lilith is demanding the sexual awakening. She's on the new moon. Opposing Lilith on the new moon eclipse is Priapus. He demands masculine sexual liberation. So you have both of them on that axis. They're on that axis. What did I just talk about? This is the Aries Libra axis. The last eclipse on this axis point. Not only is it the last eclipse, right, on that axis point, it's also with Lilith demanding the fullness of the feminine, the wildest, gnarliest, most judged parts of the feminine to be out in consciousness, to have love flowing through them. Your most judged parts of your feminine to have love flowing through them. Not only that, the most judged parts of the masculine to be brought into consciousness and to have love flowing through them. The most judged parts, the parts that you judge the most in the feminine, to be fully liberated and have love and consciousness flowing through them at like a third stage, divinely expressed way. Vice versa. Because this is Lilith. I mean, this is what Lilith is wanting. Like, it is her, this is her eclipse. She's like, y'all, it doesn't get any better than this. I got Priapus opposing me. Like, I got my equal counterpart. I got him. Right? Because I want the fullness of the masculine liberation as well. I want, what do we judge in the masculine? It's so easy to talk about what we judge in the feminine. It's so easy. I repressed, oppressed parts of self. And then it's really easy to go to the patriarchy and just fucking blame. Guess what this eclipse is doing? It is pushing us out of the, I must disempower you masculine so I can empower my feminine. It's pushing us out of that old paradigm because that does not fucking serve. If I shut you down, right? I shut you down. It's that victim perpetrator bullshit, right? You go from being the victim for so long, then you need to flip into being the perpetrator and you need to make the perpetrator the victim. That's a fucking pendulum from hell. And it just swings back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's just shit. It's just disempower to try to find some false power and then to just be disempowered again because we fucked it up that time, right? It's like when we went from a matriarchal society to a patriarchal society. Then we go back to a matriarchal society. Then we go back to a patriarchal society. There is a better way. There's a better way. And some of us are really on that. And some of us don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. And that's fine. That's fine. Again, chuck it in the fucking bucket. No big deal. Chuck it in the fucking bucket. But there's a way. There's a way. This is like that third stage I was talking about, this divine expression of Lilith, which very few people are able to express Lilith in third stage. Let's just face it. You can barely even see it in our world, right? Because it's it's like the feminine fully in her sexuality, but she's not misusing that power at all. She's not misusing. It's not distorted. It's not distorted at all. At all. She's not misusing it. It's not distorted. And she's not using it to diminish someone else's power. She's actually using it to empower the masculine and the feminine simultaneously. I don't know how many people are doing that in the world. But that's what this eclipse is asking us for. Isn't this good? Isn't this good? So we're going to do some of that work in bones. So if you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Sabrina, but I want to do that. I want that to come alive in me. We're doing that in membership this month. That may not be for you. Totally like deep bow. I very much honor that. So when I'm talking about like tantric shadow work, that's like what I'm talking about. Remember I mentioned that earlier, where it's kind of like the stuff that's really hot and really alive during this particular eclipse is shadow work in tantric capacities. Shadow work with Lilith, shadow work with Priapus, right? In those two parts that I just spoke about. That's going to happen in Bones. So if you want more on that, come and join Bones. We're doing that this month in membership. Again, it's $59. It's like nothing. You can join for a month and drop out if you want. Or like deep bow, you know, like if it supports you, amazing. If not, chuck it in the fucking bucket. Okay. So that's enormous in itself. I mean, just having that, having Lilith, Black Moon Lilith on the new moon, and then having Priapus opposing, exact degree for degree opposing, is just, that's enormous. I mean, that's mind-blowing to me. That's completely mind-blowing to me. And if we can sum it up, it's like a reclamation of the more judged parts of self. All the full spectrum of the reclamation of the more judged parts of self, and just feel into that. Like for me, my sexuality was super judged. I judged my sexuality. My society judged my sexuality in enormous ways. My masculine, parts of my masculine were extraordinarily judged. So I repressed them and I hid them. Parts of my feminine, extraordinarily judged, deemed unworthy. So sometimes judged is a hard word, but what parts of self did we deem unworthy, right? Like maybe you're, as a man, maybe like your soft, compassionate, caring fucking heart got deemed unworthy. Your emotions got deemed unworthy, right? Like, no, you can't have that. Maybe as a woman, right? Maybe as a woman, like the smart side of you, the intellectual side of you was deemed more valuable than your emotional intelligence was deemed. Like you're emotional, like I'm an extraordinarily emotional person, extremely. I mean, there's a lot of juice that rips through me, and a lot of it goes through my emotional body. It goes through all of them, but definitely my emotional body is pretty fucking lit up a lot of times. And it's too much. It's too much emotion. But there's such, when you come into right relationship with it, I mean, my emotions are like wisdom fucking keepers, you know, like they're wisdom keepers, and they're tapping into stuff where my mind cannot even go, right? And they're constantly, when we come into right relationship, and it's working with that, right? It's working with that in these deeper places. P.S. The September 1st workshop in membership will help you with that. It's feminine intuition and feminine power. So it really opens up the door to that powerfully. And we'll get you that September replay, even if you join a little bit in October. You'll see dates for that, but I want to be able to give you all like everything that we've got for the eclipse season to just really support you in this moment in time, should that be something you're called to do. Okay, so here's something else I love about this new moon. I'm not going to go for much longer. This is getting pretty long, but something else I really love and has to be spoken about on this new moon eclipse is that on the new moon, so when it's a new moon, right, it's the moon, it's the sun together, conjunct. Remember, they're in the sign of Libra, south node. They're conjunct the south node too. And they're conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Also conjunct Mercury. What does that mean, Sabrina? I've heard of Mercury retrograde, but what is Mercury on a new moon eclipse conjunct all this stuff while we're talking about shadow work? Mercury is the messenger of the gods. Mercury is going to be able to discern and decipher what Lilith is saying. Yeah. So we're going to be able to cognize stuff in a way that we normally aren't. In a way where it's just like raw primal animal, and we don't necessarily know how to think about it, or we don't necessarily know how to bring it up into the mind, into thought, into words, right? Out into the world. This is Mercury. Mercury's like, hey, I got you. I'm messenger of the gods. I can go to Lilith and we can speak Lilith. I can go to Priapus. Remember, Priapus is opposing, right? He's like the fullness of the masculine and all the parts of the masculine that we've judged and deemed unworthy and unvaluable and too much and gross and disgusting and horrible and gnarly and nasty, right? I can go to Priapus and speak Priapus's language. I can go to the eclipse and speak the eclipse's language. I can go into the south node past life territory and speak from there, help you cognize it. Y'all, this is just too good. Because not only does it mean that we're like doing the deep internal work, we're also able to do the deep internal work and then get the fucking insights to make good decisions and movement forward. It's part of what Mercury is all about. He's like, I want you to be able to cognize it so that your ego can get on board with your soul's journey and can make good decisions. It can discern things, decipher things, make good decisions, communicate things clearly. I want you to comprehend what's going on. That's what this eclipse is saying. I want you to do the deep, big work, and I also want you to comprehend it so you can bring it into your life and make some big changes in your life. Isn't that great? Isn't that so great? Make some space for that. Make some space for that. If you're, however you're journeying through this, if you're doing that deep shadow work or you're, just meditating or whatever your journey is, make some space for the insights to translate. We'll definitely be doing that in Bones. We'll definitely be doing that in membership and that 2-hour workshop that's happening October 1st. Again, you're super welcome to join. If you're watching this after October 1st, there's a replay, right? Go do it. If it sings, again, if it sings. Okay. So there's a couple more things. Let me feel if I want to dive into these. A couple more things. I'll just really quickly touch on them and I'll deepen into them in the Eclipse Deep Dive that's in membership. So the Eclipse Deep Dive that's sitting in membership, it's 90 minutes long. We go much deeper into the eclipses. It's an experiential journey and we get to work with stuff. I'll deepen into this stuff. So if any of those things you want more, just know it's there, right? It's there. But I do want to share it with you here. Before things get too out of control. All right. So interestingly, we've been talking about this like dark goddess, that's Lilith, dark goddess territory, really like shining a light and bringing love to the hidden parts of self, the repressed and the judged parts of self. We have Kali, dark goddess, ego slayer. When you think of Kali, you want to think of ego slayer. Kind of like how I was talking about Neptune earlier, where he dissolves the ego. Kali takes a sword to your head, right? That's what represents slaying of the ego, right? Slaying of the ego. It's like slaying of false self to get to true self. Stunning archetypal energy to work with, stunning goddess energy, stunning wisdom energy, like stunning divine feminine energy. Don't let me degrade it, or don't let us degrade any of these sacred energies by saying just archetypal archetype to work with, right? It's so much more than that. And just like deep devotion, deep bow to these sacred energies that we're talking about. But we have Kali conjunct the Lilith asteroid. The Lilith asteroid. So it's Black Moon Lilith, which is a moon nodal point that's on the new moon. And we have Lilith. So this is extra Lilith energy combined with Kali. So ego slayer combined with more Lilith. We've already talked about her. Combined with Pallas Athena, warrior. So we have the ego slayer, the wild woman, and the warrior, all conjunct in a sextile and trine to the north and south node. That's a positive aspect, but it's adding additional feminine, wild woman, Lilith, ego slayer, Kali, warrior, Pallas Athena. It's adding additional juice to the north and south node. Whee! Karma Dharma, right? South node. There's a highlight on south node. The more you can excavate, release, let go of, the more your north node's going to open. That's what this new moon is about. The more that you can, right? Stay facing forward. The more shadow work you can do, the more you can let go of old patterns, old ways of doing things, the more your north node is going to open up. That's your destiny, right? It's enormous. It's really powerful. Last thing that I will share about this is the new moon square Ceres Demeter, the mother. What does that mean? It's bringing up more feminine challenging. So square is a challenging aspect. Ceres is Demeter. We could consider her great mother. She would be like the archetypal mother. Moon is also mothering energy, but Ceres is another. So it's just adding into this kind of, let me feel for how this is going to show up, or could show up, or just to give you something to feel into for yourself and how it might manifest. This could be bringing up, I'm going to go for it. This could be bringing up inner child type stuff and mother relationship stuff. We could also be seeing father relationship stuff. So when we're working in South Node, past life territory, think also inner child wounding. Think mother wound, think father wound, right? Saturn's in like a weird funky play with Pluto. He's been there for a couple days now. So Saturn's father, Ceres' mother, they're both in funky places with shadow workers. So it's also like some of the shadow around your childhood could be coming up, could be very fruitful territory to work in there. Last thing that I want to share is that this new moon eclipse is conjunct the asteroid Astraea. That's interesting to me. So conjunct Mercury, conjunct the South Node, conjunct Black Moon Lilith, conjunct Astraea. Astraea, get this. Astraea was, in myth, she was the last goddess to leave humanity. So when humanity's consciousness lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered. Again, this is just a myth, but feel into what this feels like for you. Humanity's consciousness just kept lowering and lowering and lowering, getting darker and darker and denser and denser and denser. All the gods and goddesses left. Astraea was the last one to hang in there. The last one for her love of humanity, right? She was the last one to leave. Right. Stayed. And then finally, humanity's consciousness just dropped too much and it broke her heart. How many of us can relate to that? I know I can very much relate to that. Like the state of the world breaking my fucking heart. The state of the world breaking my fucking heart. How we treat each other breaks my fucking heart. The divisiveness in this world breaks my fucking heart. Like it makes me want to cry in this moment, right? How much better of a world that there could be. So I actually discovered this Astraea asteroid. I've never worked with her before. Today, actually, discovered her, and I'm like, I feel this archetypal energy so loudly, so strongly. I'm like, it's got to be in a big placement in my chart. It's got to be in a big placement in my chart. She's on my moon. My moon's conjunct Pluto, and she sits right in between the two. And I was like, this is why I fucking love humanity. And I love, I fight, right? This is why I show up, and this is why I do this, and this is why I'm here with you, and this is why ReWilding is founded. I fucking love humanity, and yeah, I don't need to talk about myself anymore, but maybe just feeling for you what Astraea brings up for you, like maybe your love of humanity or your disappointment in humanity or your heartbreak in humanity. And remember that she's on the South Node. She's conjunct this new moon, right? So she's in this eclipse, right? She's in this eclipse energy, and you can maybe feel into overgiving patterns. So sometimes Astraea can bring up this like overstaying, overgiving sort of a stuff. It's stunning and really powerful energy. And is there like a deeper alignment that wants to come with that? Because it's in Libra. She's in Libra, right? This relationship access. And for her to be there, this particular, like, I just love humans. I love it. And the frequency is lowering and lowering and lowering and lowering and lowering and lowering. And it's like, where is that self-sacrifice line? Where are we maybe sacrificing a little bit too much of ourselves? And that's also just this like relationship access, right? Is where are our boundaries needing to be shifted and changed? Where is our like line of self-sacrificing? Where is our line of service? How are we cleaning that up? You know, what does that look like in this new energy that we're moving into? All right. My gosh. I hope I see you in membership. I really would love to share much more of this and take us all into a bunch of practices around this in ReWilding membership and the Eclipse Deep Dive. If you're interested in going at all anywhere deeper, come try it out for a month, right? You got nothing to lose. It's like 8, probably by the end of it, it'll be like 9 or 10 hours of ReWilding that you get. All right, enough of that. Would love to see you all in the comments. Love you all so much. I am so crazy grateful to be here. Y'all like blew up my heart in the ReWilding challenge and in the Facebook group and in the YouTube comments and in the podcast comments, and not comments, but what are those things in the podcast? Reviews. Y'all just like crack my heart open. And I know that this is very much a co-creation. I would not be here without you. And I am crazy grateful for that. So thank you so much. So much love and a lot of new moon eclipse blessings.